Hello and welcome back to my channel, which is all about style and confidence for the 50 plus woman. In this video I want to talk about colour because it is something which I get an awful lot of questions about. I have done previous videos, I will link them in the description box for you, but I wanted to clear up a couple of things which I know many of you struggle with colour. And also one of my long-term clients made a comment to me which made me think that perhaps I had confused you a little bit in the past. So let's get into the video and hopefully I'll be able to clear up some of that confusion for you. So in the past I've talked quite a lot about not being put into a box with colour and about wearing colours that you love and about not being dictated to about which colours you should or shouldn't wear. Now, what I want to say is that doesn't mean that I don't believe in colour analysis, because I absolutely do. Whenever I'm putting together a wardrobe for somebody, the first place I start with is the colours that suit them. Having said that, I do also ask them whether there are any colours that they really love or whether there are any colours which they really hate. So I know that because I've been trained to do colour analysis, I understand how it works, and that a lot of people who don't understand it will need some guidance as to which colours look good on them. So whenever I'm talking about colour with a client, I always start with working out which colours look good on them physically. And if you've watched a previous video of mine, which I will link, which is about why I don't believe seasonal colour analysis works, it's because that does put you into a very firm box. So I don't use the seasonal approach to colour analysis. I use what's called the tonal approach, and that actually starts with 6 dominant types of colouring. So you kind of do get put into a box at the beginning with one of these 6 dominant types, but there's so much more flexibility within it. So for example, if you were put into the dominant of warm, you'd start with your warm colouring, but then you would determine whether you look better in bright warm colours or soft warm colours, whether you look better in light bright warm colours or whether you look better in deep soft warm colours or even deep bright warm colours. So it gives you a lot more flexibility to play with colours within a colour palette and really hone it down to what suits the person individually. So just to clarify, I do always start with the tonal system of colour analysis, and then what I do is I will tell the person what their dominant characteristic is, what their secondary characteristic is. So for example, if they are warm but they look better in muted colours, so they could be warm and soft. And then we'll talk about colours that they love or colours that they hate, because there may be colours in that warm soft palette that they don't actually like. So just because they're in their palette, it doesn't mean that they have to wear them. Now you can also kind of play a little bit within that palette, stretching it slightly one way or slightly another way. And that's what I do to make it fit with their personality. So if we take me as an example, I've gone through a few different colour bands, and this is another question that I get asked a lot about, is can your colours change? They can change with your hair colouring. So I started out as somebody who was soft and warm and looked better in sort of medium to darker colours because I do have quite dark eyes. Now in my 30s I went very dark. I will slot in a picture for you to show you how dark my hair went, and at that point I moved from the soft dominant into the deep dominant, but what didn't change was my underlying skin tone, which was warm. So I moved from soft and warm to deep and warm, which meant that I could wear much darker, much stronger colours because I then had a combination of very dark hair and very dark eyes. Now, since I've got older and my hair is lightened a little bit, and I think it's more flattering for me at this age to go lighter. I mean, obviously at the moment, because of lockdown, it's actually got quite a bit of grey in it, which does soften the look. So I've moved back from that deep dominant palette into a soft dominant palette. But as I said, because I have got quite dark eyes, I do also look good in darker colours. So I will stretch my soft warm palette a little bit and add in some darker colours. So I hope that kind of clarifies a little bit about how I personalise the colours. So I'm not saying to you, just ignore what suits you and wear whatever you like. What I'm trying to say is start with what suits you and then blend that a little bit and expand that a little bit so that you can find colours that really work for you, that really make you feel good. Because as I said, I think what can happen is you can be given a palette of colours, and I have heard this so many times where somebody will look at their palette of colours and I'll suggest something and they'll say, oh, I'm not allowed to wear that colour. And that's what really bugs me, this I'm not allowed to. Well, do you love that colour? Do you want to wear that colour? Then who has the right to tell you what you are allowed to wear or not allowed to wear? And of course the common one is, I'm not allowed to wear black. Well, let me tell you, if you want to wear black, you can wear black. But what I will also tell you is how to make that black work for you. Now I do wear black, but what I'll quite often do is mix it with another deeper, warmer colour, or I mix it with something that's a bit brighter. I'll mix it with one of the colours that I know look good on me. And in last week's video, I did slot in a little bit about wearing black, so I'll link that for you so that you can have a look at that as well. Or the other misunderstanding is what is the difference between some of these dominants? And again, this came up because of an article which I saw on a website where they were talking about light and warm colouring. And I have seen this on other websites as well. Now, I don't know whether this lady has been trained in colour analysis or not, but she gave a whole load of examples of women with light warm colouring. And I'm going to slot in one in particular here, which really bugged me, because this lady does not have light warm colouring. If you have light colouring, you'll have a very pale, delicate skin tone. You'll have very light hair colouring. Your eyebrows will probably need penciling in because they're very fair. Now, nothing about this particular lady fits into any of that. So the other problem which I have with people doing colour analysis or people giving advice on colour is that there are a lot of people out there who don't actually know what they're doing. So I would always say to you, if you want to get advice on colour, then get it from somebody who has been trained by a reputable company and somebody who has been doing it for quite a while, so they really know what they're talking about. They've seen hundreds of women and they've tweaked colours for hundreds of women and really know what works, because there are so many of these sites online where you can Google what colours suit me and you'll come up with something like this. And what I suppose upsets me most is that people will follow this advice and they might go out and spend a lot of money on new clothes in colours that they think suit them, and actually those colours don't necessarily suit them. Now, if they are happy with that palette of colours, then there's no issue because they're wearing something that makes them happy. But what I have seen so many times when clients come to me is that they've had colour analysis 1, 2, sometimes even 3 times, and they feel like something isn't right, something isn't working. I think we can be quite drawn to the colours which do physically suit us. And I think what happens is you put a colour on which physically is really good for you. You look in the mirror and you see your eyes sparkling, you see your skin light up. And of course it becomes one of your favourite colours because you can see that you look really good in it, even if this is all going on subconsciously. Another thing I wanted to talk a little bit about was if you have a dominant, say, of soft and your secondary characteristic is warm, What's the difference between a dominant that is warm with a secondary characteristic of soft? And this comes up quite often. So it could be if you are bright and warm versus warm and bright. So I wanted to try and explain this to you. When you look at your dominant characteristic, it's the thing that is most obvious about you. So it's what you notice first about the person. So somebody who is warm will almost certainly have red hair or have a lot of red colouring in their hair. I'm going to slot a picture in of somebody whose dominant is warm. And then we would determine whether they look better in warm and soft colours or warm and bright colours. So if they've got red hair, they've got a pale skin tone and they've got quite bright eyes, perhaps bright blue eyes or bright green eyes, then they would be warm and bright. Then if somebody has red hair, but they don't have a lot of contrast between their hair and their skin, and perhaps they've got softer green eyes or they've got soft brown eyes, then their secondary characteristic would be soft. And then if we flip it the other way, we would have somebody who was perhaps bright and warm. So they would have a lot of contrast between their hair, their skin and their eyes. Now obviously there will be colours that overlap between those two palettes because they would both have bright warm colours in them. The bright warm person can wear darker colours than the warm bright person can. I hope that makes sense. I hope I haven't confused you even more. But let's talk about warm and soft versus soft and warm. So again, if you're a warm dominant, you're going to have red hair or a lot of red in your hair. If you are soft, then you won't have that red hair. So I'm soft and secondary characteristic warm. There's no red anywhere going on. Whereas if I was first characteristic warm and secondary characteristic soft, I would have some red or golden tones in my hair. And it works the same obviously with a cool skin tone as well. So if you're bright and cool, it means that you've probably got very dark hair, you've got you have a light skin tone, you've probably got jewel-like blue, grey or green eyes. So again, lots of contrast going on. If you're cool and bright, then you'll probably have grey hair because your first characteristic is cool. So you'll have that sort of steely coolness about you, which usually means grey hair. If you like this video, then please do give it a thumbs up. If you haven't already subscribed to my channel, then I would love it if you did. And if you're a 50+ woman, you may also be interested in my Stylish at 50 membership. And I go into this kind of thing in a great deal of depth, and you get an awful lot of help in working out not only your colouring, but how to create the perfect wardrobe for you. So I'll leave some information about that in the description box for you as well. Thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye for now.